When compassion sees beyond appearances, there's a kind of invisibility that has nothing to do with magic. It's the one the modern world created for people like Rachel. Workers, janitors, clerks, people who work to support dreams they can never reach. And there's another kind of invisibility, even more cruel, the one of those who lost everything and became ghosts on the streets. Rachel was 29 years old and had been cleaning offices for almost 8 years. She got up at 4 in the morning, took 2 buses, arrived downtown when the lights still blinked alone in empty buildings. She was the first to arrive, the last to leave. She worked in 3 different buildings to pay the bills and still help her unemployed sister. But God sees. God always sees. Rachel wasn't just a cleaning lady. She was a woman of faith, raised by her grandmother in a small back house, who learned early that dignity has no price. Working honestly, even when no one recognizes it, is a form of prayer, and that every person who crosses our path was put there for a purpose. Every morning, before starting work, Rachel prayed quietly. She thanked God for her job, for her health, for the strength for another day. She asked for protection for her family and also for all the needy she saw on the streets. She didn't know that one of those prayers was about to be answered in an extraordinary way. It was a cold Tuesday in July when she saw him for the first time. A man sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against the wall of the building where she worked. Dirty clothes, unshaven beard, eyes lost in emptiness. Another invisible among so many others the city created every day. Rachel passed by him at the building entrance. Something in that man's eyes made her stop. It wasn't just sadness. It was deep pain, as if he had lost more than money, or a home, as if he had lost himself. "Excuse me," she said, walking back to where he was. "Are you okay?" The man slowly raised his eyes. How long had it been since someone spoke to him? "Are you hungry?" Rachel insisted, seeing he didn't respond. He just nodded, almost imperceptibly. Rachel opened her purse and took out the sandwich she had brought for her morning snack. "Here, and there's still warm coffee." The man took the food with trembling hands as if he couldn't believe someone was being kind to him. "What's your name?" Rachel asked. "Michael," he said, with a hoarse voice of someone who rarely spoke. "Michael, my name is Rachel. I work in this building. If you need anything, I'll be here every day." Throughout that morning, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about Michael. There was something about that man that touched her heart in an inexplicable way. It wasn't just pity. It was as if God was whispering in her ear that this encounter wasn't casual. At lunchtime, she went down to see if he was still there. Michael remained in the same place, looking at the half-eaten sandwich as if it were a treasure. "Michael, where do you sleep?" He pointed to a space under a marquee, a few meters away. Rachel felt her heart tighten. It was July, it was cold, and it rained almost every day. "Do you have family?" Michael lowered his head. "I don't have anyone anymore." That afternoon, Rachel couldn't concentrate on work. She saw Michael every time she looked out the window. A man alone, abandoned by the world, forgotten by everyone, except by God, and now, by her. When she finished work at 6 in the evening, she found Michael in the same place. It was drizzling, and he was trying to protect himself with some wet cardboard. Rachel took a deep breath. She knew what she was about to do might seem crazy to anyone, but she felt in her heart it was the right thing to do. "Michael," she said, "I want to make you a proposal." "Michael, I want to make you a proposal." The man raised his tired eyes to Rachel, who stood in the rain, not caring about getting wet. "I live in a small house with my sister. We have a couch in the living room. If you want, you can stay there until you get back on your feet, just until you get organized." Michael was silent for a long moment. How long had it been since someone offered him a roof? How long had he lost faith in human goodness? "Why would you do this for me?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "Because Jesus said that when we care for the least of his brothers, we care for him, and because no one deserves to sleep on the street in the cold." Michael began to cry, silent tears that spoke of months of pain, abandonment, and despair. "I'm not a good man," he said. "I've done things I'm ashamed of." "We all have," Rachel replied. "But God loves us anyway, and always gives us a new chance." Michael followed her silently to her house. On the bus, Rachel noticed the disapproving looks from other passengers. A homeless man on public transport wasn't well received, but she didn't care. She felt peace in her heart, as if she were fulfilling a mission. Rachel's house was simple. 2 small bedrooms, living room, kitchen, and bathroom. But it was clean, organized, and smelled like home. "Linda, this is Michael. He's going to stay with us for a few days," Rachel said to her sister. Linda, 25 years old, widened her eyes. "Rachel, have you lost your mind? Bringing a stranger home? He needs help, and we can help. What if he's dangerous? What if he robs us?" Rachel looked at Michael, who remained with his head down, embarrassed. "He won't hurt us. I feel it in my heart." Michael slowly raised his head. "Can I take a shower? It's been a long time." His voice was that of someone who had lost even basic dignity. "Of course," said Rachel. "I'll get some clean clothes from my brother-in-law. He left some things here." While Michael showered, Linda pulled Rachel into the bedroom. "You don't know this man. He could be anything. He could be an angel, too," Rachel replied. "The Bible says many have received angels without knowing. That one doesn't look like any angel. Angels don't always appear with halos and wings, Linda. Sometimes they appear needing our help." When Michael came out of the bathroom, he looked like a different person. Clean, shaved, in simple but decent clothes. Rachel noticed he couldn't be more than 40 years old, despite looking older on the street. "Thank you," he said with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. You just need to accept that God still has plans for your life." That night, Michael slept on the living room couch. For the first time in months, he had a roof over his head and the certainty that he was safe. Rachel, in her room, prayed before sleeping. She thanked God for being able to help and asked for protection for all of them. The next morning, Michael was already awake when Rachel got up. He had folded the blanket, arranged the couch, and was sitting quietly in the kitchen. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Better than I have in a long time." Rachel prepared breakfast for the 3 of them. Michael ate slowly, savoring every piece of bread, every sip of coffee. Hot food, at a table, in a real house. "Michael, what did you do before being on the street?" He hesitated. "I worked in business, but I lost everything. Absolutely everything." Rachel noticed he didn't want to go into details. She respected his silence. "Well, now you can start over. First we'll take care of documents, then look for a job. I don't know if anyone will give me work. They will. God will open the right doors." In the following days, Michael helped with household chores. He cleaned, washed dishes, took care of the yard, always in silence, as if he still didn't believe it was real. Rachel noticed he had knowledge that wasn't common. He spoke well, knew various subjects, had an education that showed even in his current condition. "Where did you study?" she asked one day. "I got a degree in business administration. Graduate degree too." Rachel was surprised. "So you really understand business?" Michael nodded but changed the subject. He still wasn't ready to tell the whole truth about who he had been. The shame was too great. 2 weeks had passed since Michael arrived at Rachel's house. Linda, who had initially been suspicious, began to accept his presence. Michael was polite, respectful, and helped with everything he could. He never caused trouble and seemed genuinely grateful for every small gesture of kindness. Rachel managed to get Michael a second copy of his documents. At the registry office, she noticed his full name was Michael Henry Anderson. When the clerk saw the name in the system, he made a strange face but said nothing. "There," said Rachel when they left. "Now you're an official person again." Michael smiled for the first time since she'd known him. A sad smile, but genuine. "Rachel, I want to get a job. I can't live off your kindness forever. You're not living off my kindness. You're sharing our home as family. Even so, I need to have my own income." The next day, Rachel arrived at work with an idea. She talked to Mrs. Martha, the cleaning supervisor. "Mrs. Martha, weren't you needing someone else for the afternoon shift?" "I am." "Why?" "I have an acquaintance who's looking for work. He's an honest, hard-working person. You can bring him here tomorrow." When Rachel told Michael, he got nervous. "What if they find out who I was? What if someone recognizes me?" "Michael, were you someone important?" He hesitated. I was a businessman. I had a big company. And what happened?" Michael took a deep breath. It was the first time he was going to tell the truth to someone. "My wife died of cancer 2 years ago. I spent everything I had on her treatment, but I couldn't save her. After she died, I started drinking. A lot. I lost control of the company, lost friends, lost the house. I ended up on the street." Rachel felt her heart tighten. "Michael, I'm so sorry. The worst part is that she asked me to be strong, to keep living, and I did exactly the opposite. I gave up on everything. But you didn't give up. You're here. You're trying to start over. Only because you gave me a chance. If it weren't for you, I would have died on the street. The next day, Michael presented himself to Mrs. Martha. He was nervous but well-dressed in the simple clothes Rachel had gotten for him. "So you want to work in cleaning?" asked Mrs. Martha. "Yes, ma'am. I need to restart my life. Rachel told me you're reliable. That's what matters most to me." Michael started working the afternoon shift in the same building where Rachel worked in the morning. It was strange for him, who had commanded a company with hundreds of employees, to now be cleaning bathrooms and emptying trash cans. But he did everything with dedication, grateful to have an opportunity. The other cleaning staff treated him well. Michael was polite, punctual, and worked without complaining. Some found it strange that he spoke well and seemed to have knowledge above his position, but no one asked questions. Rachel and Michael would meet during the shift change. She arriving, he leaving. They always exchanged some affectionate words. "How was your day?" she would ask. "Good. Thank you for getting me this opportunity. You got it yourself. I just opened the door." One day, Michael found Rachel crying in the bathroom. "What happened?" "My sister lost her job today. I'm worried about the house bills." Michael was thoughtful. "Rachel, you've already done so much for me. I want to help too. Michael, your salary barely covers your basic expenses, but I can share the house bills. It's fair." That night, the three of them talked about the financial situation. Michael insisted on contributing to part of the rent and bills. "We're a family now," he said, "and family shares responsibilities." Linda, who had completely changed her opinion about Michael, agreed. "He's right, Rachel, and I'll get another job soon." Rachel was moved. For the first time since bringing Michael home, she felt he was really considering himself part of the family, no longer a dependent, but an equal member. "Michael," she said, "you're different. More happy." "I'm being reborn, Rachel, and it's thanks to you. You gave me back my dignity when I thought I had lost it forever." That night, Michael prayed for the first time since his wife's death. He thanked God for Rachel, for having a roof, a job, a chance to start over. He thanked God for being alive and for discovering there was still goodness in the world. He still didn't know that soon he would have to face his past in a way he couldn't imagine. Michael was adapting well to his new life. For 3 months he had lived with Rachel and Linda, worked the afternoon shift, and was beginning to smile more frequently. The sleepless nights, where he relived his wife's death and his losses, were becoming less frequent. Rachel noticed the transformation and was happy to see that man being reborn little by little. One afternoon, while Michael was cleaning the building lobby, a man in a suit rushed in. Michael instinctively lowered his head, as he always did when he saw well-dressed people. He didn't want to be recognized by someone from his past, but the man stopped abruptly when he saw him. "Michael? Michael Anderson?" Michael felt his blood freeze. He slowly raised his eyes. It was Marcus Santos, his former partner, one of the only friends who had remained when everything collapsed. "Marcus," said Michael with a trembling voice. "My God, Michael, we've been looking for you for over a year. Where were you?" Michael looked around, embarrassed. He was wearing a janitor's uniform, holding a mop, in a situation he never imagined he would live. I work here now." Marcus looked at the uniform, then at his friend's face. It took a moment to sink in. "Michael, you need to know something very important. Can you talk now?" "I'm working. It's about the company. It's urgent." Michael asked permission from the supervisor and went with Marcus to a nearby cafe. He was nervous, not knowing what to expect. "Michael, you disappeared after Helen's funeral. You vanished completely. I tried to find you, but no one knew where you were. I couldn't live in that world anymore, Marcus. I lost everything, the company, the house, everything." "No, Michael, you didn't lose everything. That's what I need to tell you." Marcus took some papers from his briefcase. "When you disappeared, the other partners and I decided to keep your share in the company. We knew you would come back someday. We kept everything, your rights, your participation, everything." Michael couldn't understand. "What do you mean?" "The company grew a lot in the last year, Michael. We closed big contracts, expanded to other states. Your share is worth, well, it's worth a lot of money." Michael was silent, trying to process the information. "How much is a lot of money?" About $8 million. Michael felt dizzy. That's not possible. It is. And there's more. Your house wasn't sold. It's in the company's name. We paid the debts and kept everything for when you came back. Michael began to cry. Why did you do this? Because we're friends, Michael. And because we knew the pain would pass. And you'd want your life back. That afternoon, Michael returned home in shock. Rachel immediately noticed something had happened. Michael, you're pale. What happened? Michael sat on the couch, still processing everything. Rachel, I need to tell you something. About who I really was. You already told me you were a businessman. I wasn't just a businessman, Rachel. I am owner of one of the largest logistics companies in the state. Rachel was confused. What do you mean? Michael told her everything. About the company he had built. About the money he thought he had lost. About the friends who kept his share. About the fortune he had discovered he had. So you're rich? I am. Very rich. The silence that followed was heavy. Rachel didn't know what to say. And now? She finally asked. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go back to that life. Why? Because in that life I was unhappy. I had everything, but I had no peace. Here, with you, being a janitor, I found something I had lost. Simplicity. Happiness in small things. Rachel was thoughtful. Michael, you can't run from life forever. I'm not running. I'm choosing. Are you choosing or are you afraid? Rachel's question hit him hard. It was true. He was afraid of going back to that life and losing himself again. Afraid of becoming that cold, calculating man again, who only thought about business. Maybe a little of both. Michael, God didn't bring you back to life for you to hide. He brought you back for you to use everything you have to do good. How do you know? Because I know your heart. You're not the same man who lost everything. You were reborn. And reborn men don't go back to what they were before. They become what they always should have been. That night, Michael didn't sleep. He kept thinking about Rachel's words, about Marcus's proposal, about the life he could have again. But one thing was clear in his mind. He didn't want to give up the family he had found. He didn't want to lose Rachel. Michael spent days in anguish. Marcus called constantly, pressuring him to return to the company. There were important meetings, decisions that needed to be made, contracts waiting for his signature. But Michael couldn't take the definitive step. Rachel perceived his internal struggle and respected his silence. She continued treating him with the same affection as always, but felt something had changed between them. An invisible barrier seemed to have emerged since she learned the truth about him. Rachel, can I talk to you? Said Michael one night, after Linda went to sleep. Of course. You've been different with me since you found out about the money. Rachel sighed. It's not about the money, Michael. Then what is it about? It's about honesty. During all these months, I thought I knew you. Now I discover you hid a huge part of your life. I hid it because I was ashamed. Ashamed of having been successful. Ashamed of having lost everything because of drinking. Ashamed of having given up on life when my wife asked me to be strong. Rachel approached him on the couch. Michael, everyone has things they're ashamed of. But between people who love each other, there shouldn't be secrets. People who love each other? He repeated, surprised. Rachel blushed. I shouldn't have said that. Why not? Is it true? She nodded, unable to look him in the eyes. Rachel, I love you too. Since the first day you treated me like a human being, but I thought it would be unfair to tell you that in my condition. And now? In your new condition? Michael held her hands. Now I'm even more afraid. Why? Because now you might think I'm only saying this because I found out I'm rich. That it's self-interest. Rachel laughed, with tears in her eyes. Michael, I loved you when I thought you were a nameless, homeless man. Why would I think it's self-interest now? They kissed for the first time. A kiss full of love, but also fear and uncertainty about the future. The next day, Michael finally decided to go to the company with Marcus. Rachel insisted he should go. You need to face your past to be able to build your future, she said. The company building was imposing. Michael had helped build that, but now he felt like a stranger. Employees recognized him, some whispered among themselves. The man who had disappeared for over a year was back. In the boardroom, he met the other two partners. They embraced him with genuine affection. Michael, so good to have you back. We really missed you, man. During the meeting, Michael was impressed with the company's growth. It really had become an even bigger and more profitable business. Your share entitles you to 8.5 million now, Marcus explained, and it grows every month. Why did you do this for me? Asked Michael, moved. Because you built this with us, and because true friendship doesn't abandon anyone. Michael spent the day at the company, remembering how everything worked, talking with old employees. Many were happy to see him back. But when he got home that night, he found Rachel quiet, packing his things. What are you doing? Packing your clothes. I imagine you won't want to stay here anymore now that you have your life back. Michael sat on the bed next to her. Rachel, look at me. She raised her teary eyes. I don't want my old life back. I want a new life. With you. Michael, we're from different worlds. We were. Now we're from worlds that complete each other. I'm a cleaning lady, Michael. You're a millionaire businessman. You're the woman who saved me when I was lost. That's much more important than any title or money. People will talk. Let them talk. What matters is what we know. Michael hugged her. Rachel, I want to make you a proposal. What? Marry me. Rachel's eyes widened. Michael, it's not about the 8 million. It's about the 8 months you took care of me without expecting anything in return. It's about the 8,000 gestures of love you gave me when I had nothing to offer. Rachel began to cry. What if it doesn't work? What if I don't know how to live in your world? Then we'll create a new world. Our world. The news spread quickly through the city's business circles. Michael Anderson, the businessman who had disappeared for over a year, was back. And not only that, he was engaged to a cleaning lady. The comments were immediate and cruel. She must have found out who he was and pulled the scam of her life. Poor Michael, he's being used after everything he went through. Gold digger, it has to be. Rachel heard the comments when she went to the market, on the bus, even in the building where she worked. The words hurt deeply, but she tried to stay strong. Michael, meanwhile, faced pressure from business friends, and even from distant relatives who reappeared when they learned of his financial recovery. Michael, are you sure about what you're doing? Asked a cousin at a family gathering. Absolutely. But man, you can have any woman now. Why choose precisely a what? Michael interrupted, clearly irritated. Someone too simple for your level. My level? You forget that just months ago I was sleeping on the street? The cousin was left speechless. Rachel loved me when I had nothing, when I was at my worst moment. That's more valuable than any social status. But the pressures continued. One day Rachel came home crying. Michael, I can't take it anymore. Today a lady at the bakery said I was an opportunist, that I was embarrassing all working women. Michael hugged her, furious with people's cruelty. Rachel, what these people think doesn't matter. It does matter, Michael. Because it hurts. And it makes me question if what we're doing is really right. Are you doubting our love? No. I'm doubting if I have the strength to face a world that sees me as a gold digger. That night, Michael made a radical decision. He called Marcus and the other partners for a meeting. I want to sell my share of the company. All three were shocked. Michael, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Why? Because I want to prove to Rachel and to the whole world that my love for her has nothing to do with status or social differences. Man, that's 8.5 million. You're going to give up all of that? I'm not giving up everything. I'll keep enough to live well with her without ostentation. The rest I'll use for a social project. The partners tried to dissuade him, but Michael was decided. He sold his share for 4 million, kept 500,000 for a simple but comfortable life with Rachel, and allocated 3.5 million to create a foundation to support homeless people. When he told Rachel, she was silent for a long time. Michael, you didn't need to do this. I did need to. I needed to prove that you're worth more than any fortune. And if I say I prefer you keep the money, I'll say it's too late. It's already decided. Rachel hugged him, crying, You're crazy. Crazy in love with you. The following week, Michael organized a press conference. He wanted to make his project public and, mainly, clarify once and for all his relationship with Rachel. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, he began, I want to tell a story. The story of how a simple woman saved my life. Michael told everything. How he had lost everything. How he had ended up on the street. How Rachel had found him and taken him home without knowing who he was. Rachel Silva didn't know I had money. Didn't know I was a businessman. She saw only a man needing help and offered what she had. Her home, her food, her heart. The room fell into absolute silence. That's why I'm creating the Helen Michael Foundation, in honor of my late wife and the new beginning Rachel gave me. We'll invest $3.5 million in projects for homeless people. And about your relationship with Miss Rachel? Asked a journalist. Michael smiled. Rachel is the most honest woman I've ever met. If anyone is self-interested in this relationship, it's me, because she gave me infinitely more than I can give back. The story appeared in all the city's newspapers. The tone changed completely. Suddenly, Michael and Rachel became symbols of true love and social transformation. But for them, none of that mattered. What mattered was what they felt for each other. Now do you believe I truly love you? Asked Michael. I always believed, Rachel replied. I was just afraid I wouldn't be enough for you. You're more than enough. You're perfect. With social pressure diminished and the truth clarified, Michael and Rachel could finally plan their future without the weight of external judgments. They decided to have a simple wedding, just with family and closest friends. I don't want a big party, said Rachel. I just want the people who truly love us. Perfect for me, Michael agreed. I already had a big wedding once. Now I want meaning, not ostentation. The ceremony was held in the small church Rachel had attended since childhood. Mrs. Rose, the elderly neighbor who had become like a mother to her, cried throughout the entire ceremony. I never thought I'd see our Rachel so happy, she told Linda. Michael had asked Marcus to be his best man. During his speech, his friend said, I knew Michael at the height of success and at rock bottom, but I've never seen him as complete as he is today, next to Rachel. After the wedding, they moved to a medium-sized house, comfortable, but without excessive luxuries. Michael insisted on maintaining the simplicity he had learned to value. I don't miss the penthouse, he said one day, while they tended to their small garden together. And I don't miss the cramped little house, Rachel laughed. This one is perfect. It's ours. Michael returned to work, but differently. He set up a small business consultancy and dedicated 3 days a week to the foundation he had created. Rachel left her cleaning job, but didn't stop working. She became coordinator of the foundation's social projects. You have a knack for this, said Michael, watching her organize a lunch for homeless people. Natural at caring for people. I learned from the best teacher, Rachel replied. My grandmother. The foundation project grew rapidly. In 6 months, they were already serving more than 200 people per month, offering not just food and temporary shelter, but also vocational courses and psychological support. You know what moves me most? Said Rachel one day. What? Seeing that each person we help could have been you, and each life we transform is a way of being grateful that you appeared in mine. Michael kissed her. And each person we help reminds me how lucky I am that you found me. A year after the wedding, Rachel discovered she was pregnant. Michael, we're going to have a baby. He lifted her in his arms, radiant with happiness. Boy or girl? We don't know yet. Doesn't matter. It'll be perfect because it's ours. During the pregnancy, Michael became even more attentive. He accompanied all medical appointments, built the baby's room with his own hands, and talked to Rachel's belly every night. What do you tell him? Rachel would ask. I tell him how I met his mommy, how she saved my life, how lucky he is to have such a special mother. The baby was born on a spring morning. A beautiful, healthy girl, whom they named Helen Hope. Helen in honor of my first wife, Michael explained. And Hope, because that's what your mother brought to my life. At the hospital, holding his daughter in his arms, Michael reflected on everything he had lived through in the last 2 years. The pain of loss, the descent to rock bottom, the encounter with Rachel, the reconstruction of his life, true love, and now a new life being born. Thank you, he whispered to Rachel. For what? For saving me, for loving me, for giving me this family. Michael, you saved yourself. I just showed you the way. No, you did much more than that. You taught me that true success isn't measured in money, but in love. That true wealth is in the people we love and who love us back. Rachel smiled, tired but happy. And you taught me that miracles happen when we least expect them, that God sometimes disguises angels as homeless people to test our hearts. 2 years after Helen's birth, the Helen Michael Foundation had become a reference in serving homeless people. What began as Michael's personal project had grown and inspired other companies and individuals to contribute. Rachel, we have an interesting proposal, said Michael one day, coming home excited. What? The government wants to partner with us to expand the project to 5 other cities in the state. Rachel was thoughtful. That's wonderful, but will we be able to handle it? Not alone, but remember what your grandmother used to say about God. Rachel smiled. that when he wants us to do something, he finds a way to give us strength and resources. Exactly. I think this is one of those moments. The Foundation's expansion brought new challenges but also many beautiful stories. Each person they managed to get off the street and reintegrate into society was a personal victory for the couple. Sometimes I wonder, said Rachel one night, if God didn't orchestrate all of this from the beginning. How so? Think about it. You lost everything to be able to truly understand what homeless people go through. I had a heart prepared to welcome you because I was raised that way. And now we use this experience to help others. Michael was impressed with his wife's reflection. You might be right. Maybe my fall wasn't a punishment, but preparation. And maybe my simple life wasn't a limitation, but training to be able to see value where others don't. One day, while visiting one of the new shelters, they found a man who had been resisting help for weeks. He lived under a viaduct and wouldn't accept food or conversation. Let me try, said Michael to the volunteers. He approached the man, who was dirty and clearly disturbed. Hi, friend. Can I sit here? The man looked at him suspiciously, but didn't respond. My name is Michael. I've slept in places like this. For the first time, the man showed interest. You? Me? For months. I thought I had lost everything and wasn't worth anything anymore. And what changed? A woman showed me I still had value, that I could still start over. Michael pointed to Rachel, who was watching from afar. That one there. She took me off the street, gave me a roof, food, but mainly gave me hope. And now? Now we're married, we have a daughter, and we created this foundation to help people like you, like I was. The man was silent for a long time. What's your name? Asked Michael. John. John, can I give you the same thing Rachel gave me? A chance to start over? John nodded with tears in his eyes. 3 months later, John was working at the foundation itself, helping other homeless people. He had become one of the most dedicated volunteers. Michael, he said one day, thank you for not giving up on me. John, I only did for you what was done for me, and now you do it for others. That's how good multiplies. Rachel, who was listening to the conversation, was moved. It was exactly what her grandmother always said. True good is like a seed. When planted, it grows and generates more seeds. That night, at home, while putting Helen to sleep, Michael said, you know what's the best part of all this? What? It's that our story isn't just ours. It belongs to everyone we help, everyone who was inspired, everyone who learned it's possible to start over, and everyone who discovers true love exists, Rachel completed. Yes, love that saves, transforms, multiplies good in the world. 5 years had passed since that rainy morning when Rachel found Michael on the sidewalk. Now the Helen Michael Foundation was present in 15 cities, had taken more than 2,000 people off the streets, and had become a national model for social reintegration. Helen, now 3 years old, played in the house garden while her parents organized documents for the newest expansion of the project. Daddy, tell the story of how you met Mommy, the little girl asked as she did every night. Michael smiled. Helen loved hearing this story, even being too young to understand all the details. Once upon a time there was a very sad man who was lost on the street. Then a very kind princess appeared who took him to her house. And they lived happily ever after. Helen completed, clapping her hands. Yes, my daughter. And they helped many other people be happy too. Rachel watched the scene with a full heart. Sometimes she still couldn't believe everything they had lived through and achieved. One day they received an unexpected call. It was a journalist from a national magazine. We would like to do a special story about you. Your story has inspired many people across the country. We don't do this to get attention, said Michael. We know, but the exposure could help inspire other businessmen to create similar projects. Michael and Rachel talked and decided to accept. If they could inspire more people to help, it was worth it. The story came out on the magazine cover with the title, The Love That Transforms, How a Homeless Man and a Cleaning Lady Changed Thousands of Lives. The repercussion was national. Michael began receiving invitations to speak throughout the country, telling his story and encouraging other businessmen to get involved in social causes. You became a celebrity, Rachel joked. We became one, he corrected. And only because our story shows that true love still exists. One day during a lecture in New York, Michael was approached by a young businessman. Michael, your story inspired me. I want to start a similar project in my city. That's great. What can I do to help? I want to understand, How did you know Rachel's love was true? Michael smiled. Because she loved me when I had nothing to offer, when I was just a problem, not a solution. And how did she know you were worth it? I think she saw my soul when I didn't even believe it still existed. After the lecture, Michael called Rachel. You know what impresses me most about all this attention? What? It's that people are starving for stories of true love, as if they were losing hope that it still exists. It does exist. We're proof of that. We are. And we have the responsibility to show the world it's worth believing. At the end of that year, the foundation received a National Social Responsibility Award. Michael and Rachel were invited to the ceremony in Washington. In his acceptance speech, Michael said, "This award isn't ours. It belongs to each person who believed it was worth starting over. It belongs to each volunteer who donated their time. It belongs to each company that contributed. But mainly, it belongs to each person who left the street and now has a dignified life." Rachel completed. When we decide to help someone, we never know how much that person can transform our own life. Michael taught me that angels sometimes appear disguised as needy people, to test our hearts. The audience was moved by the couple's speech. That night, at the hotel, Michael said to Rachel, "Do you realize the dimension of what we did? We didn't do anything extraordinary. We just followed what Jesus taught. Love your neighbor as yourself. But look how many lives changed because of that simple choice you made 5 years ago. Michael, it wasn't me who changed the lives. It was God using our story. We were just instruments." Michael hugged her. Willing instruments. And that made all the difference. 10 years after that encounter on the sidewalk, Michael was again walking through downtown streets. But now he wasn't lost. He was visiting the foundation's shelters as he did every week. Rachel accompanied him, along with Helen, now 8 years old, who loved participating in the family's volunteer activities. "Mommy, why is that man crying?" asked Helen, pointing to a man who had just arrived at the shelter. "Because he's going through a difficult moment, daughter, like your father went through once." "And are we going to help him?" "We will, like someone helped your father." Michael observed the conversation between mother and daughter and was moved. Helen was growing up with solid values, learning from an early age the importance of compassion. That day, they encountered a special situation. A young mother with 2 small children had arrived at the center. She had lost her job, been evicted from home, and had nowhere to go. "What's your name?" asked Rachel, crouching down to the woman's level. "Susan. And these are my children, Peter and Anna." Rachel and Michael looked at each other. Anna, the same name Rachel had chosen for the girl in her childhood prayers, when she dreamed of having a daughter. "Susan, do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" "No, ma'am. That's why I came here." Michael approached. "Susan, what did you do before losing your job?" "I was a cook in a restaurant, but the owner closed the business." "Do you cook well?" "Yes, sir. I learned from my grandmother." Rachel had an idea. "Michael, do you remember we were looking for someone to cook at the Northside shelter?" Michael smiled. "I remember. They offered Susan the job with a decent salary and even arranged a simple house for her and the children to live in." "Why are you doing this for me?" asked Susan with tears in her eyes. "Because someone did it for us when we needed it," Rachel replied. 6 months later, Susan was completely reestablished. She had become one of the foundation's most beloved employees, and her children were studying at a good school. "Rachel, Michael," she said one day, "how can I thank you for everything you did?" "By doing for others what we did for you," Michael replied. "That's how good perpetuates itself." That same year, Helen did a school project about heroes. She chose to write about her parents. "My parents are heroes because they saved many people. My father was lost on the street and my mother found him. Now they help other lost people find themselves too." When Michael read his daughter's work, he cried with emotion. "Rachel, remember when you asked me if I thought everything had happened for a purpose?" "I remember. Now I'm sure it did. I needed to go through all that to be able to truly understand others' suffering. And you needed to have a heart prepared to welcome me. And now our daughter is growing up seeing that helping others is normal. It's part of life. It's the cycle of good perpetuating itself." One day, Michael went to give a lecture at a company and was approached by a young executive. "Michael, your story touched me deeply. I'm going through a difficult time. My wife died of cancer last year and I don't know how to continue." Michael felt his heart tighten. It was like looking at himself 10 years ago. "What's your name?" "Carlos." "Carlos, Can I tell you something? The pain of loss never completely goes away, but it can transform into strength to help others. How? My first wife died of cancer too. The pain destroyed me, took me to the street, but it was there I found my second chance. And today I use my experience to help other people who are going through what I went through. Michael gave Carlos his card. If you want to talk, look for me. And if you want to help others, we have space at the foundation. 3 months later, Carlos became one of the foundation's main collaborators, coordinating a specific project for widows and widowers in the grieving process. It's incredible, said Rachel, how our story keeps multiplying. That's what happens when we do good without expecting anything back, Michael replied. It comes back multiplied. 15 years had passed. Michael was 58 years old, Rachel was 44, and Helen was 13. The Helen Michael Foundation had become one of the country's largest social organizations, present in 50 cities, and responsible for reintegrating more than 15,000 people. But for Michael and Rachel, the numbers weren't the most important thing. What mattered were the stories, the faces, the transformed lives they encountered every day. Helen, now a teenager, had become a socially engaged young woman. She spent afternoons at the foundation, helping with activities for children whose parents were in the reintegration process. "Dad, I want to study psychology," she said one day. "Why?" "To help people like you were helped. To understand others' pain and know how to heal it." Michael and Rachel were proud of their daughter. She had chosen a path of service, even having financial conditions to do anything in life. One day they received a special visit. It was John, the man Michael had convinced to leave from under the viaduct years ago. "Michael, Rachel, I have news to tell you." "What?" they asked, curious. "I'm getting married." Both were moved. John had found love at 52, with a volunteer from the foundation itself. "And there's more. We want you to be our godparents." "It would be an honor," said Rachel, hugging John. At John's wedding, Michael gave an emotional speech. "John represents everything we believe in, that it's never too late to start over, that true love can come at any moment in life, and that every person has value, regardless of where they are or what they've been through." After the ceremony, Rachel said to Michael, "You know what moves me most about all this?" "What?" "It's seeing that our story continues inspiring other stories of love and new beginnings." That year, Michael decided to write a book telling his experience, From Top to Street. A Journey of Losses and Encounters became a national bestseller. "Why did you decide to write?" asked a journalist during the launch. "Because I realized our story can give hope to many people. For those who lost everything and think there's no way out. For those who have little but want to help. For those who don't believe in true love anymore." "And what's the main lesson you want to convey?" Michael looked at Rachel, who was in the audience. "That life's greatest treasures don't cost money. That compassion is wealth everyone can have. And that when we truly love, we change not only our life, but the world around us." After the event, at home, Michael said to his family, "Do you know what my greatest wealth is?" "The foundation?" asked Helen. "No." "The money left from the company?" Rachel joked. "Also no." "Then what?" Michael hugged both of them. "You. This family we built, the love we share, the people we were able to help, the true friends we found along the way." "And if you had to choose between having all the money in the world or this life we have?" asked Rachel. Michael didn't hesitate. "This life, without a doubt. Even knowing everything you went through, especially because of everything I went through. Pain taught me to value joy. Loss taught me to value what I have. The street taught me to value home." Helen, who was listening to the conversation, said, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to have a family like ours." "You will, daughter. Just choose to love truly and let yourself be loved truly." That night, Michael and Rachel went out to walk in the garden, as they had done every night for years. "Michael, if you could go back in time, would you change anything?" Michael thought for a moment. "Maybe I would have taken better care of my mental health after Helen's death. Maybe I would have sought help before hitting rock bottom. But if you hadn't hit rock bottom, you wouldn't have found me." "That's true. And then I wouldn't have you. Wouldn't have our Helen, wouldn't have the foundation, wouldn't have all the people we were able to help. So maybe everything happened exactly as it should have happened." Michael stopped walking and looked at the starry sky. "Rachel, thank you." "For what?" "For being my angel. For showing me there was still goodness in the world. For giving me a family. for teaching me that true success is measured in love, not money. Rachel smiled. Michael, you saved my life too. How? You gave me purpose. You showed me my capacity to love could transform lives. You gave me a beautiful family. You taught me that miracles happen when we have the courage to love without fear. They kissed under the stars as they had done 15 years ago when it all began. The moment of revelation. At that ceremony for the Foundation's 20th anniversary, Michael held the microphone with hands trembling with emotion. Before thousands of people and TV cameras, he looked at Rachel and said the words that would echo throughout the entire country. My wife took care of me for months without knowing who I was. She bathed me when I stank. She fed me when I had nothing to offer. She loved me when I was just a problem, not a solution. His voice choked. For months, she served me, without knowing I was a millionaire in disguise. And when I finally revealed the truth, what she did changed everything. The reaction that defined everything. Michael turned to Rachel, who was crying in the audience. You know what my wife said when she found out I had money? She wasn't impressed. Didn't change the way she treated me. She simply said, "What a blessing. Now we can help so many more people." The crowd was moved by his words. In that moment, I knew I had found my true treasure. A woman who loved me for who I was, not for what I had. A woman who saw my wealth as an opportunity to serve, not to be served. The legacy of a choice. Michael continued. Today, our Helen Michael Foundation has already transformed more than 25,000 lives. We have centers in 100 cities. But it all started with a simple choice. A cleaning lady who decided to see Jesus in a stinking homeless man. He paused, looking at the camera. Rachel taught me that God places angels in our lives disguised as needy people, to test if our hearts still know how to love without self-interest. And when we pass that test, He rewards us in ways we never imagined. If you're watching this story and feel lost, without hope, without value, know that your turning point might be around any corner, disguised as an opportunity to love someone. Michael held Rachel's hand. And if you have little, but have love in your heart, know that this is the greatest treasure that exists. Because when we love as Christ loved, without expecting anything in return, God multiplies our small gestures into miracles that change the world. Helen, now a graduated psychologist, approached her parents on stage. My parents taught me that true success isn't measured in money, but in transformed lives. That true wealth isn't in what we have, but in what we give. And that true love doesn't love for what the person has, but for who they are. The complete circle. 20 years after that encounter on the sidewalk, Michael was no longer the lost man Rachel had found. But he also wasn't the cold businessman he had been before the tragedy. He was something new. A man who had gone through death and been reborn. Who had lost everything and discovered he had gained much more. The greatest lesson of my life, he said, ending his speech, is that God allows us to lose everything to discover what really matters. And what really matters can't be bought. Only given. Love, compassion, purpose, and faith. The true happy ending. While the crowd applauded standing up, Michael and Rachel kissed on stage. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss, but something much more powerful. It was the kiss of two people who had chosen, every day for 20 years, to love each other and their neighbors as Christ loved them. And in that moment, everyone understood they had witnessed not just a love story, but a living testimony that the greatest miracles happen when we have the courage to love without fear, serve without self-interest, and trust that God can use our smallness to accomplish His greatness. For months, she served Him, without knowing he was a millionaire in disguise. What he did afterward not only changed their lives, but transformed thousands of other lives, proving that when true love finds unlimited resources, there's no limit to the miracles God can perform.